Hey everyone, welcome back to another New World video. I hope that everybody is having an absolutely fantastic day, and in today's video, just like the title and also the thumbnail show, we're going to be talking about one of the best builds that I have discovered so far when it comes to being a Lifestaff user and mostly being a healer in general. Now obviously I've put this Lifestaff together with a lot of different weapons, and there is another weapon that I do plan on attaching it to. I am just not currently at a level 20 in that weapon, so I want to spend the next day or so working on that to try to get up to level 20 so I can do a little bit of tinkering with it and see what I actually can come up with. Now if you guys have any changes to the specific build, I'd love to hear about it. But before we actually dive into the video itself, if you guys are enjoying these videos, make sure that you guys go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe down below. It really does help me out a lot and is greatly appreciated. And it helps destroy that YouTube algorithm because YouTube likes it when you guys do those things that I just asked you to do. And if you could be so kindly to do that, that would be appreciated. But anyway, the other thing that I do want to go over is my gear is not the gear. I'm not necessarily even the Lifestaff or the axe or the hatchet that I'm actually looking for. So because, you know, there's a watermark score and we need to grind from gear score 500 and slowly generate our weapons and our armor up to that 600 mark. And who knows, it might change at some point if Amazon decides to actually update their game. But I want to dive into some of this other stuff. The other things that I don't have for you guys is I don't have any gameplay, unfortunately, with this specific setup. You won't be able to see how I actually react in some of the situations. Pretty much everything that I've done has been in completely large groups lately. So it kind of doesn't really showcase this build the greatest, but I have been able to use this very well in like a 5 group setting because that's actually what it's designed around. Now there are some tweaks that I do want to make with it, and I'll identify those throughout the rest of the video. And like I said just a little bit ago, the gear that I'm wearing and even the hatchet and the Lifestaff that I'm using, they're not the end game of end game stuff because I'm still working on that, but there are opportunities to make this even that much better. So let's go ahead and dive into it. The first thing we're actually going to go ahead and take a look at is we're going to look at the Lifestaff. So the Lifestaff, this is obviously the dominant weapon that you guys are going to be using, and you're mostly going to be using this as a main weapon. Now this is the categories that I have chosen. I've obviously chosen the beacon. I've also chosen the Light's Embrace and also Sacred Ground. But I know that some people, instead of using Light's Embrace, will also go with Divine Embrace. And there's a lot of controversy between the two. I haven't really played around too much lately with Divine Embrace, but when I was using it, I did like it. I can say that the way that this is set up now, Divine Embrace would actually be a just fine way to go ahead and do it, because obviously when we get to privilege right here, you can actually decrease mana by 20 or 220 from 25 to 20. But the cooldown is a little bit longer than Light's Embrace. It's almost 2 seconds longer. However, if you have active cooldowns, that your armor allows you to actually have lower cooldowns or whatever it might be, then this could actually change quite a bit. Now, instead of even using one of those two, Light's Embrace or Divine's Embrace, you could actually go with Orb of Protection. And that is something else that I do plan on messing around with a little bit. However, the cooldown is almost double that of Divine's Embrace and almost 3 times longer than Light's Embrace. And typically when I heal with Light's Embrace with this specific setup, I'm almost healing anywhere between 1500 and 2000 HP per person, and that happens literally even with some of my cooldown offerings. I think I can do it almost every 2.5 seconds, which is incredibly fast. So from there, obviously you want to have all of Sacred Ground. You want to have these 3 here. So you want to have Beacon, Infused Light with Radiate's Blessing. I don't really think that Speed of Light is necessary for haste for only 3 seconds, and I don't think an attribute point here is worth it. But even to get to Beacon, you do have to have either one of these 3. So you either have to have Orb of Protection, you need to go with Bend Light, or also Defense Light. And I felt like this one, with this specific build, Bend Light is the one to go ahead and choose. So because it's easy to do a dodge at any point in time, and then heals have become more effective for 20% more, which is awesome for 5 seconds, which I absolutely love. That it's easy to just kind of stay in the back and do a dodge animation for no apparent reason. There's no cooldown on this. You can just do it, and your heals are now 20% more effective to your entire group, which is absolutely fantastic. And then I went pretty much all the way down the line with all of this. So Absolved with any Lifestaff build should be used no matter what, because Lifestaff light and heavy attacks no longer consume any of the mana, which means that you can basically attack for days and obviously never have to worry about it. Lightstaff heavy attacks now removes debuffs, so if you guys are in any of the dungeons or any setting where bleed or poison, you can just throw this off by using a heavy attack. As long as it goes through the enemy or close to them, then you guys will actually remove that issue with them, and that is absolutely, and you can actually remove it from yourself. So if you're doing this with a PvP build, then you can actually remove the poison and then get back into doing whatever damage you want to. Now obviously you're going to be standing still for a split second, so definitely keep that in mind to either pop in the sacred ground or a beacon to kind of sustain that, but I'm not going to tell you guys exactly how to play it, because it's up to you guys how you guys want to do it. And then we also have Desperate Speed, and then we have Sacred Protection, and then obviously you went with Divine Blessing for the entire healing tree, which obviously if anybody is below 50% in their health, that means that we can heal them for 30% more. And unless you're in like a dungeon and you're trying to keep them up all the time, you probably shouldn't be allowing them to always get to that 50% anyway, but sometimes obviously it does happen from time to time, and obviously you can target the wrong person in the heat of the battle as far as the healing goes. So that's how I have this tree set up. If you guys have any adjustments for it, by all means leave a comment down below. All right, let's go and move into the hatchet. I went full berserker with this one, and honestly I love it. I've tried different throwing ways and I did not like it whatsoever. I mean, I tried the rendering throw, I tried infected throw. I just felt like the cooldowns were way too long, or even the possibility of using them, where I just decided that I was going to go with Raging Torrent, because Raging Torrent with the Feral Rush seems to actually be a really good pairing, because you can pop one and then kind of wait for it to get down to that 50% of cooldown, and then you can go ahead and use the other one, because they have virtually almost the exact same cooldown, which is absolutely fantastic. Now obviously full berserker is very needed. You can use it for haste to get around the map a lot quicker, so you can improve your speed by 20% while you're actually in that berserker mode. Just make sure that you don't switch weapons, because if you do switch weapons or like a dodge or cancellation roll, you will lose your berserker. That means you lose your 20%. So if you're going to use berserker for getting around the map, just use that, or just use the dodge cancellation tactic to roll around the map a lot quicker. However, we are not in light armor, and we're going to get to that in just a second, that it won't really matter for us. But if you went full light armor or kept it in the light category, then by all means you could use that as an effective way to get around the map fairly quickly. All right, but yeah, full berserker mode. Again, if you guys would change anything about this one specifically, go ahead and let me know. Now basically what I'm doing with the Lightstaff hatchet combination is I'm throwing down a sacred ground to protect myself and keep my health up as best I can when I'm with an enemy of a level 60 or even higher, and then that way I'm basically always regenerating my health. And then I throw a couple attacks with my light staff, just because it does a significant amount of damage, especially when I am at full HP, because I am using a diamond with my light staff, that we can actually go ahead and do more damage, because when we're at full HP we can actually do 12% more damage. So that's a great weapon to go ahead and start with. And then I switch over into hatchet, and I start using the hatchet in order to start getting some of my Feral Rush or even my Raging Torrent, and then obviously throwing a berserker down prior to that, and then I can do a lot more damage on whatever enemy I'm working on. So that's kind of how I use it. And then obviously if you're going to be mostly full heal, you can use this as like a backup DPS build. Now you aren't doing as much damage as I would like, but you can still crit for anywhere between 750 to 1,000 pretty easily with this build, and it seems like it does happen a lot of the times with the critical hits. All right, let's go ahead and kind of go back here just a little bit. So that's what I have for those two. And then we have some attributes. Now, this isn't quite the way that I want it. There is a little bit of adjustments. Obviously, we don't need anything in dexterity, and we don't need anything in intelligence. So my dexterity, I want to get rid of completely, and I'd like that to go actually into strength. Now, the reason that I want to get it up to that 50 mark is because with the hatchet specifically, we're throwing a lot of light attacks down anyway. We're not really doing heavy attacks with the hatchet itself, but that will allow us to actually go ahead and get an additional 5% damage with those. So we could actually increase our critical damage and just our normal damage in general by 5. And that's going to add up significantly over time, especially when you're beating on one boss for a long period of time. Now, obviously, if you guys are going to go full Lifestaff and be a healer, you need to get up to that 150 mark right off the bat, because that's going to give you that 20% healing output, and that's just going to keep everybody alive a lot longer. So then at 100, we get 20% more to the mana pool, and then we obviously get 10% yield increase when we salvage anything, so that can be helpful. And then we get a 10% mana regen rate at 50. And then at 200, we're getting a 20% duration on casted buffs. So if we cast anything or do anything with the buffs itself, that will actually be extended for another 20%. And now the one that actually really helps with being a healer in this entire setup is the attribute at basically 250. So we get 30 mana on every self or group kill. So if you're in a dungeon and somebody else gets a kill, you instantly get 30 mana back. Now, the only time that you should be popping mana pots at all with this build whatsoever is when you're on a boss fight and there are no current ads, or your focus isn't on the ads themselves, and hopefully your teammates are killing them, because then you're going to get that plus 30 on top of that. So there's a lot of benefits to having this. Since I've actually been at the 250 mark, I do not hardly use mana pots anymore, especially when we're doing open world dungeons and just doing like gear score grind or whatever it might be. I never have to do any of that. If it's a solo boss fight and my sole purpose is to keep everybody alive, then that is when my mana is the only time that it actually fully gets drained is during that situation. But usually there are a couple ads during some of those fights, so then every once in a while I'll get like a 30 or 60, but by casting just 2 of the spells, it's virtually gone again, and then I might have to pop a mana pot just to make sure that it is sustainable and that I can keep everybody alive. And obviously Constitution is going to help with you specifically, and I like to try to keep it around that 100 mark, because our increased health is actually boosted by 10% of our physical armor. And we are going to be in that medium category, or as close to the heavy category as possible. So you guys are going to have a lot of armor on you, which means that 10% of that physical armor is going to be added to your health. And I don't know if you saw that earlier, but we'll show that here in just a moment. So that's kind of everything of the reasons why I chose it. So I'm still trying to get this up to that, keep it right around that that 50 mark if I possibly can. Unfortunately, the axe that I am using does have, or the hatchet that I'm using does have dexterity in it. So if I can find a strength, focus, or constitution axe, then that is what I'm going to go ahead and grab and use. And then I'm just going to go ahead and respec and make sure that everything kind of sits the way that it is. Now, like I said earlier, my gear isn't where exactly I want it to be at yet, so that could change some of my attribute points and where I put them going forward. But I'm sitting at a 502 gear score, which is actually pretty low, because I haven't found some gear pieces that I'm really content with. But you know, we got 541, 533, 533. This one's my lowest, but I do know that my pants can actually have gotten up there a little bit. I just don't know if I have any. Yeah, there we go. I'm 545, but it doesn't fit what I'm looking for. It has dexterity, intelligence, where I'm looking for strength, constitution, or focus. So, and I haven't found any pants since my gear score grind has really started that really fit what I'm looking for. This one is close, which this one I might actually change to, but I would rather have the medium leg wear versus the light, because I'm trying to keep this as close to that medium so that I have more armor in it. But this one, if I want to get that extra strength that I'm looking for, however, if I add this one, I believe it was this one, then I lose my focus of above 250. So it's kind of a situation. So do I want to be a healer, or do I want to be a little bit more DPS focused? So there is always that. But if I add this one into there, then that should go ahead and actually increase my gear score a little bit. And then we have a couple items here that are kind of lower than I want them to be. I just need to start crafting or finding or paying for better ones. And then this will actually increase my gear score by quite a bit. And then I am only using a 500 Lifestaff, just because I really like the Keen, which does that 9.5 critical chance crit. And then we're also doing the Enchanted, which light and heavy attacks deal 8.6% more damage. Now, if I could have those 3 perks on a 600 Lifestaff, by all means, sign me up, because those are the 3 that I actually want fully. Now, the reason that I'm actually using diamond instead of an amber in here is, number one, is if you look at the actual like nature damage, we already are doing all 100% nature damage, so you can't put an amber stone on here or gem on this one. So I went with diamond. If you can't put an amber on any of your weapons with this specific build, you should be putting a diamond. It's as simple as that. Now, the hatchet obviously is nowhere where I want it to be. Even some of the perks are not where I want. However, I did put a brilliant gem in there just to do that 50% damage, which is converted to nature, which really does help out quite a bit. And obviously it's going to scale on your focus. So the higher focus that you are, in my case, I'm at 256, then that's going to make a significant difference. I mean, it's split virtually nature and slash, which I love that, right? But these weapons are nowhere near where I want them to be. I have found a couple other hatchets that are a little bit higher. I don't know. I'm not really sure what to do about them, because I'm not... The hatchets and a couple of the gear pieces that I found lately have just not been at all what I'm looking for. So I've gone with the light for the head, heavy for the chest, light for the gloves, and then I went with light. I would prefer medium here, and then heavy for the feet. And then that basically keeps it right under the heavy marker. It keeps us in that medium category. So we have at least some armor to keep ourselves alive. And obviously we're making sure that we can actually still do a decent amount of healing output and everything else. So, but if you guys have any specific questions about this build or exactly how I use it, hopefully I covered as much as I possibly could in this. There's a lot of changes that I still want to do this with this one. I think a lot of people are still working on their builds, even people that I put in well into over 500 hours into this game are still looking for the specific pieces that they are. Now, I might have to get to the point where I just will have to craft the pieces that I'm actually looking for, but still that doesn't guarantee me the perks that ultimately I want to be able to have on either my armor or my weapons. But anyway, hopefully this does help you guys out, and if it does, then make sure that you guys go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe down below. It would help me out a lot and is greatly appreciated. But until next time, YouTube, you guys keep doing what you're doing, because you're already doing it, and you guys stay gaming.